Welcome to my talk story, Jooksing in China. This happens to be the 37th anniversary of my first trip to China. Because we made my first trip to China in April of 1982. Well, okay, my name is Rita Jean Moy, or known by my Taishan name, Moy Lai Jian. And I'm a second generation Chinese American. Now I'll be telling stories of searching, finding, visiting the house of my grandmother's sister, my Yipo, my grandfather, my Gung, and my father, my Papa. With each story I will tell a bit about the family, the preparation for the visit, and highlights of the visit. Okay. In 1982, that's when I made a visit to Taishan. It was after our 3-week China tour. And during that time and stay, the tour group itself had an arranged visit to a village. For me, I had a personal house visit. And it was a visit to my grand aunt, who was my grandmother's, on my mother's side. My grand aunt, her name was Si de Lu Chu. And Chu, that I guess. And here's a little bit, okay. Well, anyhow, I'm missing a slide here. Well, anyhow, I'm missing a little something here, but oh God, I missed a photo, but anyhow, my grandmother's side, she was a Der, and her actual name was, her main name was Der Klu Helm, and when she was married, and she came to Washington, D.C., she was known as Jingo Mu, so everybody knew her as that. Not Mrs. Lee or anything like that, but everybody called Jingo Mu. And she had a younger sister who never came to China, to the U.S. And she had a brother named James. He immigrated to the U.S. and he was a house servant in Pasadena, California, and came over to visit his sister when she needed help. But he didn't like the East Coast at all. So, but anyhow, her sister married a C. And she stayed in Taishan. And all this information was been obtained from my Aunt Frances's family history documentation, as well as my cousin Camden's his documentation of the family. In order to make this trip, my mom had a cousin named Ben Y. Lee, and he made all the arrangements and knew everybody in Taishan, it seemed like. And he knew the family. And he gave me this information card. Take it with you, okay? You're going to need it. So he said, there's my name, Chinese. It's where my grand aunt, where she lived. Then there's the village where she came from. And I guess it's Henfoot Lay, the Der village. And he gave us the name of the 2 escorts that would meet up in Taishan. And it was Mr. Wong and Mr. Yuan. So, at that time, remember this is 35 years ago, it's all by writing and by mail only. So it took about a couple months for the arrangements to be made. In addition to those cards, he told me, be sure to have red envelopes with money to give to the great aunt, to everyone in the family, and to the escorts. You're going to need them. Okay? As a side, after the trip, I gave him some money too, so for it. So let's see. Oops, wrong. Okay, when we finally got to Taishan, It was a long trip, day trip from Guilin to Taishan. Went by train, no, we went by plane and bus, and it took a whole day to get there. So, it was an enjoyable trip, you know, but when we got there, I was met up by an escort, the escort that Cousin Ben said I would meet, and gave us instructions that we're going to pick you up by Chedoi. Okay, I didn't know what that meant. Chedoi, what is that? Okay. Okay, so the next morning, getting ready, I and my friend on the trip, Annie Yee, who could speak Chinese better than I can, and she didn't have any particular village to visit, came along with me. Said, good, she was my grandmother's, one of her, call it, young friends. So she got on the Chedoi, there it is, okay? And here's the streets of Taishan at that time. A lot of bike traffic, new buildings, tear down, either building or tearing down buildings. Then, as we approach closer and closer to the Grand Aunt's house, we see the landscape of Taishan at that time. Beautiful scenery up there of the lake and the bridge, and someone told me that's still there. And of course, there's the market stand. It was a bargain, really, that stuff. It was kind of interesting what you could pick up there. And of course, at that time, they had plenty of people with sweet tooth there, so they had candy, cookies, and everything else. Okay, and alongside there, as we approach the house, we see the old and new Taishan. You see tearing down and building up. Then you see remnants of the Red Revolution and the border closet house building. Wrong way. We finally got down to the street where my grand aunt lived, and it was 74 Nanmenlu. And there she was at the door, waiting for us. See, that's my grandmother, Jingermo, and that's Lu Chu, my East Lu Chu. My grand aunt had two daughters who lived with her with their families and husbands, as well as an adopted son who said he didn't want his picture taken at all. I'm not part of the family, I'm just adopted. And plus, in addition, she had two nephews from her husband's side with family living in Hong Kong who visited her often. And in addition, she had a third daughter married and lived in LA. Besides exchanging stories about family, this was with their house, and in her house was a two-story brick house, had fluorescent lighting, ceiling fan. You know, you just pull string, you got your fan going. And they had on their first floor a small kitchen with a dining seating area. And you see it was decorated with photos. And then you see that wall clock, Western wall clock there with a pendulum. Very unusual. But like I said, the Hong Kong nephews brought her many things to call it, furnish the house. While the daughters were preparing lunch, we had dim sum. Grand aunt made, she said, I made the dim sum. It was very good. And then the daughter said, yeah, we can't make it as good as they can. And I said, yeah, my purport did the same thing. She made the best one because I couldn't do it. So anyhow, after we had dim sum, and lunch was ready. We had an 8-course hot lunch. Fresh vegetables, chicken, fish, and a dessert of apples and oranges. And before leaving, we exchanged gifts. Okay, I had my gifts of the red envelopes, fruits and candies. And in return, I don't have this photograph, I found it after I did all this, but anyhow, I received bags of, listen to this, I had a bag of lotus flower, dried orange peels, some dried up vegetable roots, and some medicinal herbs. So bags of that, I know I couldn't bring home. I took a picture of it and that was it. So when I get back to Hong Kong, I sort of like, okay, we'll just leave it behind. So, but after this visit, it came to mind that, you know, they really went out of their way to impress me. And there's more surprises coming up from this visit. That fall, I received a written English letter from her granddaughter, my grandaunt's granddaughter. She lived in LA, saying, "We're related." And my grandma said, "Was very glad to see you. Hope you come out again to see us." And 2 years later, the Hong Kong nephews and their families visited Washington, D.C. So we sort of had a little mini reunion there. And we met at the China board. So it was a little nice family reunion. I think we had pictures of that too, somewhere. But 35 years later, I made my second trip to Taishan in the November of 2017. Let me, oh. Okay, at that time, I went out, Helen, Lou, and I toured China, and toward at the end of our China tour, we had our visit to Taishan because the Lee Family Association had their conference in Taishan. And here both of us had the opportunity to visit our ancestral home, their villages. Before this, I searched for the villages of my grandfather as well as my father, because I didn't know where they came from. I didn't know their villages at all at that time. So, and the first thing I did was go back to my aunt's documents, as well as my cousin's, and look for my grandfather's little family history. And I found out that, you know, here's some facts about my grandfather. He was born in Long Tom. He immigrated to the U.S. He returned to China after graduating McKinley High School here in D.C. Then went back to China, got married, lived in Wangonglei for a little while, then came back to D.C. again. Of course, my grandmother came about a year later, and she was escorted back. Okay? My grandma was, at that time, the wife of a merchant. That was the only way she could come. And as you see in this picture, that's my grandmother. And in the middle was the first generation Chinese American in the Li Gong family. That's my mom. Okay. This is the Li family. This is a very unusual photo. Okay, there's my mom and this is the rest of the Li family. I don't know who these people, might be his parents, I'm not sure, okay? But these other people I recognize. But this is my grandfather's nephews and their family. So you look at the picture closely. Look how they dress and how Li Gong family are dressed. Kind of interesting. It looked like they did some photo editing that time. Okay. All right. Now, okay, I needed to find my grandfather's village. It's like, okay. And so, you know, I need to validate this information that I got from the documents I've been looking at. So went to a close relative, and her name was my cousin Kim Tu. And she wrote this note. Okay, down here, she wrote this Chinese note here, right over here. And she said, okay, the village where your grandfather came from is Wangonglei. Well, that's where he lived when he was married, okay? But anyhow, and they said, and here came, and she wrote down Mei going, I said, who the heck is she? I don't know. But he says, supposedly that person would help you. Well, at that time when I got information, I had no idea who she was. And she didn't tell me who she was. I didn't meet up with this lady till much later in China. So we went on. So this was my only inkling to validate the information from my grandfather. Like I said, he came from the village of Wonggong in the ShanMei Taishan. Okay, that's all information I got. But so that validated the information I got from the documents. So okay, with this I carried to China, and without further, I took it, and on our next to last day in China with Helen, after we visited her father's Li villages, it was just time to say, okay, it's my turn. Let's see if we can find my grandfather's village. Well, the person helping us, Li Wei Kun, and his driver look at the note and says, we're not going to make it. I don't know where, know this village, no, I don't know where it is. But wait, Mei Kun, she's here, she could help you, but she's back at the hotel, so you got to contact her. Well, it's not going to help me. One more day left in China, but that's what he said. So our lessons learned, you have to have accurate information and a local contact to make your arrangements. Otherwise, I didn't make it this time. But anyhow, moving on. So we would say, well, okay, we're in China now. And my next trip was to visit my father's village. And was told from talking to people about my visit that Dunfun was the area where most of the Moi villages were. And while I was in Dunfun, you should visit the main attraction in Dunfun. There's a main attraction there. And you say, well, where's Dunfun? Well, relative to where we were staying for the Lee family convention, it was about 16 miles southwest. So this is down the coastline down here. And the hotel where we're staying for the convention was up here. So it's like on this main road. So approximately 16 miles southwest. And Dunfun is this area, at least about, as you can see, it's about 200 square miles in that area. Okay, then you said, okay, what's the attraction in Dunfun besides villages? So, okay, here we are. This is the, what they call the Dunfun tourist attraction. The attraction in Dunfun. And you say, well, yeah, look at it. This courtyard is known as the Moi's Courtyard. And it was built by the overseas Chinese in the 1930s. And you see the buildings are Western-like, not Chinese, and they cover an immense large area. At that time, the overseas Chinese also built the first middle school in Dunfun, in Taishan. Well, everything was going okay in Dunfun and Taishan at that time in the 1930s until the earthquake in 1936. After that, the building boom and development just died. And here's what it looks like today. It's not exactly in good shape. So as we went along here, here's what you see. Nice looking buildings, and we see market stands there, as well as tourists roaming around there. So I mean, this was not exactly the busiest season we were there. This was in November. But you can see what kind of shape it was in. We saw shops that were open for business, shop, not open for business, as you can see. And I went into the store. It was kind of unusual. It was air conditioned, clean, well stocked with food items as well as gift items. And outside, you see a lot of market sets of dry goods, fruits and vegetables, and other food items. Plenty of fish for sale. And they have desserts. And you can see kids making whatever they were making there. Didn't know what it was. It was some white stuff that they were making. I'm not sure. I have no idea what it was, but it looked like they were having fun. And plus we had tourists. This is our guide enjoying dessert. I'm sure all of you have had before. It's the Chinese jello lenfun. So that's very good, okay? So I said, okay, enough is enough of the tourist attraction. It was time to go, and one more stop we had to make. I have no idea what the sign was, but it's sort of like a commemorative stone of some kind. It says, okay, I'm here doing fun. And there was a date on it, it says 2002. I'm not sure what the significance of that was. Maybe it's a commemorative stone of some kind, but if someone could help me translate that, it would help. But it was an interesting picture to take. Okay, one more stop today doing fun. I have to find out where the heck is my father's village, okay? All right, moving on. Search of my Moy Dupont, that's my name, my father, to his village, ShanMei. Okay, this is my father. Okay, this was taken like maybe, he was about 30 years old, something like that. But anyhow, this is what I knew about my father going to China. He was born in Taishan in 1909. He immigrated to U.S. through Boston when he was about 12 years old. Then he lived in New York City and Washington, D.C. and worked in Chinese restaurants. Then he served in World War II, went to join the Army in during World War II, and became a naturalized citizen at that time also. But he never returned to China. So, moving on, by 1970, happily married to my mom, Helen Lee Moy. So that's 3 kids, okay? And by that time, he became the owner of his own restaurant, the Chinese-American restaurant known as New Asia. Then, this photo, the significance of this photo is that in this is a Moy gathering in Cleveland, Ohio. I think that's where a lot of my Moy cousins are located. That's a sort of like central point. Because I had Moy cousins on the West Coast and the East Coast, and Cleveland's like in the middle. But anyhow, these 2 people right here, this person was my father's sister. She came over here in the United States when she was about like 80 years old from Hong Kong. So, that's kind of hard to travel that. And this is her daughter. But anyhow, the daughter would be helping me identify my father's village. And this is when it gets interesting. Okay, I needed to know my father's village and its location. Well, I had a talk story program, just like this. I learned there was a database that was available online to search for your family village if you knew your surname or had English of a village name. Okay, I went online and discovered approximately 150 Moy villages. Only 150. If you were a lead, you could have pages and pages of it. But anyhow, I text the village names to to the daughters of I'll call it my father's niece, my cousin. Say, go find out which one is my father's village, if your mother can remember. Remember, she was like 80 years old, so it's like, okay, let's see. But like I said, she's a very alert person, And okay, eventually they did find it. I was running out of time, and they said, we found it. And it said, it's ShanMei. Great. So we found the name, and it's in Chinese, so we had no mistaking that this was the correct one. Hopefully, well, anyhow, moving on. Okay, one down, two to go. Another thing to do is, okay, where is it? Okay, at another talk story program, Frank Moy had a map.
Yeah, it's right back there.
And it had a map of, it's a very good map, very informative map. Not only just names, but it had the sub hung and hung in it. So you can find it. Well, it took a while to find it. He and Madge Lam, who could read the Chinese, helped us look at it. We spent some time at some bakery, Chinese bakery, looking at it. It took us the afternoon to find it. And here, once we got it, it was like, okay, I gotta take pictures of it. That was interesting too. But anyhow, we found a map, and we found the village. Let's see. Okay, there. Okay. Okay. Once we found it, I start taking. This is the best picture I took.
Right.
Of that village. This where it says sun. Okay, here. Right here. Now I recognize that, and this one is, I remember when I was looking at that, they said some of this somehow, and that's the correct one right there, so if you need the two, that's a very good map, I mean, that you have.
Yeah.
So, that's artificial, so all this other stuff helps you locate yourself. So, this is the one I took to China. You can see all the roads there, so it's like, okay, hopefully this is good enough. Hopefully it doesn't feel like the Lee Village one, okay? But yeah, I didn't know that at that time, but you know, I was kind of happy that I found this. I thank Frank for it, you know, and Talk Story. But anyhow, moving on. Okay. We, okay, with my village name and map, and on our last day in China, and after visiting Helen's Ing villages, we said, okay, we'll let our escort and driver, to look at the map. Says, can we make this trip to ShanMei? Says, looks like a pretty good map, let's go. So, on our way, we went, and this is our road to ShanMei. You can see some village entrance. That wasn't my village, so moving on. You can see the familiar scenes like that of that area. And we traveled for a while, so it was about, I guess, between pictures, it was maybe about 20 minutes drive or something. I don't remember how long it took from the Ames to this Moy village, but the driver we got on a narrow road, and the driver kept saying, are we at ShanMei yet? He stopped along the way to ask people, are we on to the road ShanMei? I said, yeah, keep on going. Well, we kept on going. We came to a dead end. Right there on your right is our dead end, that tree. So there was nowhere to go. So the driver stepped out, and he saw this big guy standing around and says, is this ShanMei? And he said, yeah. So, moving on, we entered the courtyard. Looks pretty lonesome there. You know, but this was the village. And we entered, you know, there were some nice looking buildings and some old run-down buildings, but anyhow, eventually the villagers came out. This is a small sampling, but here is the village leader. He's the one with the bicycle. He was pretty talkative. And this is some of the other, and here's the big guy that we met up. He was the one that said, yeah, this is ShanMei. But these are some people that had their photos taken, but you know, then we just took a little tour around the, I walked around the village and you noticed some of the housing area here. You know, we didn't know whether it was occupied or not, but it looks kind of lonesome there, but moving on. You couldn't miss this building. This was the biggest thing you could see in the village, and it stood out. It was modern looking. It looked like part of Dun Fun attraction, you know. You notice the balcony and the rails and everything else. But it had what's so unusual is that had barred windows.
Yeah.
It's like, what was that? Well, you know what? We never asked that question. Who lived there and what was, or if it's not a house, what was it, you know? But anyhow, moving on around this village, we encountered this area, playground exercise area. Okay, where's the kids? It looks kind of lonesome. Moving on. Of course, this is a familiar scene. We're all over the place. The women managing the vegetable gardens. Of course, this was my last, okay, spending about 15-20 minutes here. Okay, this is my last glimpse of ShanMei. Okay, not bad looking, but I don't think I want to live here, but moving on. We said to Mr. Moy, he says, okay, we want to say, you know, say our farewells. And we say goodbye, and here's a little red envelope for you. Thank you for your time. And when we said to him, he says, you know, the red envelope, and luckily, you know, we didn't have a large crowd at the village. Otherwise, it would be very embarrassing. We had one red envelope and all these people looking at it. But anyhow, our guy told us, you know what you should have done? Should have told the village leader, this red envelope, share the money with them, okay? Share this gift money. They'll be happy. They'll remember you better. But anyhow, so we said, okay, goodbye, Mr. Moy and people of ShanMei. So after this visit, I wish I had done more. It's like maybe visit a home, or go in and visit an ancestral hall, or possibly a burial site. But that's an afterthought. But anyhow, after all these visits, you know, after these 2 visits 35 years ago and now, I say, use technology to help you. Seek out friends, family, organizations, workshops, genealogy groups. There's plenty of them out there. Plus, attend workshops and programs like Talk Story. If I didn't attend Talk Story, I don't know where I wouldn't be able to do anything, visit. And plus, you know, record all your information about people, relationships, and places in Chinese. In Chinese. That's the only way you can communicate it and get the right information. And to know a person who's fluent in Chinese as well as someone who's local, they can help you a whole lot and get all the help you need. So I say, Joy again, it's nice talking to you about this. So,
Rita, before you stop, you said this looks very lonely, whatever. Remember, we asked them, where did the people
oh,
go?
yeah.
You gotta tell them that.
Okay. Yes. Well, we asked some questions, okay? We asked them, how many people live here? They said, maybe 30 to 50 people. You didn't see any families here. You didn't see any children here. So you may say single men, single women, maybe old couples, but that's about it. Then we asked them, where did they go? We said, okay. They said, may go, okay, USA. But where did we go? Obama. What do you think? Chicago. And that's, the Boys Association is located in Chicago, because that's the headquarters.
Yeah.
So that explains why they're in Chicago, not in DC. So that's the most interesting thing about this village here, okay?
Okay.
So
Thank you.
that's it.